Carol. Stephen, we're going to start in Ukraine, where the crisis very much affecting the country's finances.
Yes, and the central bank has stepped in now. It raised overnight its benchmark interest rate from 6.5% to 9.5%. This step taken not only to curb inflation, but also to support the value of the battered currency. The Ukrainian currency has actually fallen massively against the dollar so far this year. It's in fact the worst performing currency in the world against the dollar based on its falls over the recent months. You can see one here now is worth just 7 US cents at close of trading yesterday. Kiev now just has 2 months worth of foreign exchange reserves left to pay for its imports. The country's waiting for the first instalment of its $18 billion IMF bailout. The central bank governor says that is coming soon, but this as Russia has been increasing pressure on Ukraine to pay its outstanding gas bill of over $2 billion. This at the same time, the country's economy is set to shrink by 3% this year.
And has any of this news been affecting the global markets?
It's not weighing so heavily on trading today. We had seen more of an effect, in fact, yesterday. Today, the markets in Asia are taking their cue from what happened on Wall Street, where we saw gains. That's helped the Nikkei back into positive territory after the recent falls. Things not so great in China, though. Some disappointing data on the money markets, actually showing the amount of money available to lenders, causing some concern there. You can see the Hang Seng in Hong Kong and the Shanghai Composite both down.
OK, now moving on to some news that may well have affected quite a few of our viewers. I don't know about you, but I've certainly had to change a few internet passwords in the last couple of days. Stephen, this is all to do with a big internet security breach, and it's actually been hitting the Canadian tax authorities in quite a worrying way.
Yeah, the breach is called Heartbleed, and quite a lot of websites were affected by it. It was discovered last week, and some 2/3 of websites use the technology that was hit by it, called OpenSSL. Now, the Canadian tax authorities published a statement on its website on Monday saying that 900 social security numbers, personal details of people who'd filed their taxes there, had been stolen because of this security fault. They say they're now trying to establish if there were more people affected than that, just as you say, they're the latest of websites that have been trying to deal with this rather massive internet security attack.
OK, here in France now, the government is trying to make life easier for businesses in 50 different ways.
Yeah, it's all part of François Hollande's plan to make life simpler to do business here in France. Every 6 months, the government plans to announce 50 measures that will ease the huge administrative burden on entrepreneurs. It also has the handy effect of saving the state €2 billion a year. Some of the rules set for the chop do seem a little unusual, though, as Calvin now explains.
Cutting through the red tape. This advertising printing business has fewer than 20 employees. Each time the owner hires a new staff member, he has to fill out a dozen forms.
It's a lot. While we spend time on this, we're not looking for work for the company.
Soon, small businesses like this one will only need to complete a single form online. It's one of 50 recommendations on ways to cut red tape and save the state's €2 billion a year on admin costs. Earlier this year, President François Hollande promised to make doing business in France easier. In return, companies will create jobs in a bid to lower record unemployment. More than 3 million French people are jobless. Another measure, simplifying the payslip from 30 lines of charges and deductions to just a few basic details like this payslip from the UK. Business owners say this is long overdue.
We've got someone employed part-time just doing this throughout the year, checking payslips and doing all the paperwork. It'd be a great time saver if we don't have to hire that person. We're saving money that we can invest elsewhere.
France will also simplify its labour code, scrapping unnecessary procedures and rules, including a law from the 1930s requiring bakers to tell the police when they go on holiday.
Let's take a quick look now at some of the day's other business stories and sales. The food giant Nestlé grew slower than expected in the first 3 months of the year. The company's earnings were hit by cold weather in the US and spendthrift consumers here in Europe. It posted lower than expected revenues of just under $24 billion for the period. And the drinks giant Diageo has offered $1.9 billion to increase its stake in Indian producer United Spirits. The owner of Guinness and Johnnie Walker is trying to boost its share of the firm from 29% to 55%. The news sent United's share price to a record high in Mumbai.
OK, we're going to end up on some news that very much rings true with me, actually. I might be thrown out of France for saying this. I personally tend to prefer Prosecco and Cava to champagne. They're more expensive cousin. And it seems like a lot of people in the UK are going down that road as well.
Yeah, that's right. A new survey from Rabobank showing that imports of Prosecco to the UK shot up by 40% last year.
All to the Nicholson family.
Probably, yeah. That's hitting the French rival Champagne, though. Traditionally, of course, a very big import market for champagne. According to another survey, they saw their sales fall by 5% to the United Kingdom last year. Now, the report's author says it's because a bottle of bubbly is becoming something much more everyday for consumers in the UK. It's not just for special occasions anymore, which is why Prosecco, which is cheaper in general, is doing better. But champagne producers don't need to worry too much, though. Sales from the UK, still their biggest export market.
Yeah, I think champagne is still pretty safe, aren't they? And we ought to say, to be consumed in moderation, as always. Thanks very much, Stephen Carroll there with the business news. We're going to move on now to web news. And if you're a user of the Google Glass technology, there's some worrying news from San Francisco.
Just had glass torn off my face and smashed to the ground. 20-year-old journalist Kyle Russell tweeted this message on Friday, shortly after being assaulted on the streets of San Francisco, and he since shared a more detailed account online. The encounter has indeed shaken Kyle Russell, who's posted a series of messages to social networks describing his shock and disbelief. As he told the Business Insider website, there was no apparent reason for the attack other than the fact he was wearing Google Glass. It brings to mind the story of Sarah Slocum, who was attacked in San Francisco at the end of February. A story that received a lot of media coverage at the time. She was a victim of a violent altercation in one of the city's bars, where several customers set upon her because she had the web giant's wearable computing device. As the Mashable website reports, this type of incident illustrates the growing tensions between long-established residents of San Francisco and employees from the web companies now based there. High-tech workers are accused of pricing ordinary citizens out of the housing market and creating a two-tiered society in the Californian city. Young people posing with cold weapons or showing off their loot from hold-ups, robberies and attacks, monies, watches, designer shoes. This is a type of photo you'll see on the growing number of so-called Charmil Facebook pages emerging from Morocco. A very popular trend right now in Casablanca, Charmil is generating an increasing sense of insecurity among locals. It has become something of an online phenomenon, so much so that King Mohammed VI instructed the police to take action. News site 360 reports that police in Casablanca have arrested hundreds of people over the past few weeks, charging them with assault or for carrying knives and other such weapons. Instigators of the anti-Charmil citizen movement have praised the authorities' action, and their Facebook group, set up on March 25th, now has some 20,000 members, campaigning against the Charmil phenomenon, intent on making the city streets safe once more. The 5,000 or so signatories of this online petition are pursuing the same objective. Not only are they asking the Interior Ministry to focus on the issue of insecurity in Casablanca, they're also calling on the Health Ministry to ensure public hospitals have adequate equipment and staff to deal with this upsurge in violence. This video of bison allegedly galloping out of and away from America's Yellowstone National Park to escape a natural disaster has gone viral. Some entertained ideas that they were fleeing an impending eruption from a dormant volcano in the park, but park officials have confirmed the video is a hoax and have in turn produced a video clip to establish the truth, explaining the animals were running into the park for no particular reason and there's therefore no cause for concern. Dutch dad Frans Hofmeister filmed his daughter every week from birth up until she turned 14 to produce this time-lapse video 0 to 14 years in 4 minutes, currently doing the rounds online. And you can check it out in its entirety on YouTube.
We're going to take a short break now here on Live from Paris. Coming up, what is the sunflower movement in Taiwan? Find out in our special focus report.